Hi guys, me again, Mel's Talks, Conversations, Sunday Conversations. So I'm recording this now because there were so many glitches on the Wi-Fi and everything just now that as much as I enjoyed talking to you, this is important and I really wanted you to get it in its entirety. So I'm recording today as an addition to what went before. So, hello everyone and welcome to the Sunday Conversation. It's lovely to have you here, and if this is your first time in joining me, a very warm welcome. Before we start today's conversation, I want to quickly bring you up to speed with where we've been over the last few weeks, because these conversations are beginning to build on one another. At the heart of Mel's Talks is something I keep coming back to, and that is that confidence sits at the centre of everything. But I'm not talking about the loudest person in the room. I'm not talking about being the loudest person in the room even, or pretending that we've got everything figured out, because I can tell you I certainly have not. I'm talking about that quieter confidence, knowing yourself, trusting yourself, and believing you can navigate whatever comes next. In our first conversation, we talked about invisible handbrakes. Those repeating patterns, beliefs and old stories that can quietly stop us moving forward. We started asking, what's holding me back? And what is it I'm telling myself? Is it actually true? The message from that first conversation was simple. We can't change a pattern until we recognise it. The following week, we looked at what happens when those patterns are triggered. Do we become defensive and fight? Do we become the ostrich and avoid what's happening? Or do we fall back into an old story where we convince ourselves that we're not good enough or that things have never worked out for us? We talked about pausing before reacting and asking, am I responding to what's actually happening now, or am I responding to an old fear? Because once we recognise our response, we have a choice. Last week, we moved from awareness into action. We talked about the fact that confidence isn't something we have to wait for before we start doing something, but that confidence grows through doing. Sometimes that means taking one small step. We also talked about practical ways of managing those moments when anxiety and self-doubt take over. I shared that something that works for me is simple breath work, holding my hand on my heart and feeling the weight of my hand on my heart, and then breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding for 4, breathing in for 4 again. It gives me a moment to stop, reconnect with myself and ask the question, am I responding from fear or from love? Am I responding from what is real or from what is not? And perhaps most importantly, we talked about giving ourselves permission not to have everything figured out, to forgive ourselves, to trust ourselves, and to keep moving forward. And that brings us beautifully to today's conversation. Because sometimes moving forward isn't simply about overcoming self-doubt. Sometimes life changes in ways we didn't choose. A relationship ends, a career changes, a friendship disappears, our children leave home, our circumstances change, or we find ourselves saying goodbye to a version of life, or even a version of ourselves that we thought would always be there. And suddenly we're faced with something we can't fix or control, loss. For me, one of the greatest losses in my life was losing my mum. It was a long time ago now, but the space that she has left has never really been filled, and it will never be filled. And that's what I'd like us to talk about today. Not simply how we get over loss, because I'm not sure that's even the right goal. But how we learn to live with loss, navigate change, and still give ourselves permission to move forward. So today I want to ask you, what loss or change are you carrying? And perhaps the most important question, how are you showing up in response to it? Sometimes we can even grieve that a person we thought we used to be, or the life we thought we were going to have. And like I said, it can be a job, a career, our own financial security, our confidence, our sense of identity. And I think one of the hardest things about loss is the lack of control. Something has changed, sometimes without our permission, and we're left trying to work out how to live with what comes next. For me, one of the greatest losses in my life was losing my mum. It was a long time ago now, but the space she's left has never really been filled. And like I said, perhaps it isn't supposed to be. One of the things I've found the hardest isn't only missing her, it's doing new things without her. Experiencing something wonderful and thinking, I wish I could tell Mum. Making new memories that she isn't physically part of. There are moments when that absence can still catch me completely by surprise. But there's something I'm learning. All the love, the fun, the laughter, the tears, the conversation, they're still here. They're part of me. Those experiences help make me the woman I am today, mistakes and all. And perhaps moving forward doesn't mean leaving the people we've lost behind. Maybe we carry them forward with us. This is where our conversation from the last few weeks comes back in. Because when life changes, our old patterns often reappear. Mine certainly do. When something goes wrong, particularly when I think I made a mistake, I can feel myself slipping back into fear. I question myself. I lose confidence in my decisions. And one of my patterns is to withdraw. I lock myself away. That's my invisible handbrake. And recognizing that has become really important, because now I begin to notice I'm doing it again. Not with judgment, with awareness. I can stop and ask myself, what am I actually afraid of? What are the facts? Am I responding to what's happening today, or am I replaying an old story? And then comes perhaps the hardest question, can I forgive myself? Because we're allowed to get things wrong. We're allowed to change our minds. We're allowed to grieve. We're allowed to have days when we're not strong. None of those things mean we've failed. I shared a little bit earlier in my live when everything just started going wrong, everything. My notes just went, the Wi-Fi kept dropping in and out. And the hardest thing for me was to sit with it and to stay. And I did, as some of you will know, I did do my breathing. I had to put my hand on my heart and take a minute and breathe, recenter myself, bring myself back to the now. And then from that, what was my one right action? Well, the first one was staying and finishing the live no matter what, and just talking from my heart. And the second, and probably the biggest one, was making the decision to record this, to put this up so you would know and hear what I had planned. Because what am I afraid of? What am I actually afraid of? What, that I was honest and open in the live, and that somehow that's going to show you a vulnerable part of me. Well, it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay not to be okay sometimes. None of those things mean that we've failed. We can't always control what happens to us. We can't undo a loss. We can't go backwards and make a different decision. However, we can begin to choose what we do next. And sometimes moving forward doesn't look particularly impressive. I mean, this isn't particularly impressive. I'm re-recording. I'm doing a recording of what I was trying to do live. Not particularly impressive, but I'm doing it. It's an action. It's moving me forward. It's a fresh beginning. It's a new start. It might mean that for some people, it's just getting out of the house, answering the phone, talking to someone, going somewhere on your own for the first time, applying for another job, allowing yourself to laugh again without feeling guilty, or simply deciding, as I just did, I'm just going to try again. I'm just going to try again. I'm just going to record it, try again, put it up, try again. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It does mean that loss no longer, and it doesn't mean that loss no longer matters. It doesn't mean that we've forgotten that loss. It means we're allowing ourselves to continue living alongside it. And I shared with you about the loss of my mum, and it would have been her birthday yesterday. And I know that the one thing my mum would want me to keep doing is to keep living, to keep moving forward, to keep putting one foot in front of the other, and to keep showing up, and to keep remembering the love and the laughter and the joy that we shared. So I want you to think about what losses or changes are you navigating at the moment. On the live, someone shared with me that they were navigating sabotaging themselves. I do that all the time. Queen of self-sabotage. Get up, dust yourself off, write yourself a letter, say sorry to yourself, and then accept the apology as you would have accepted it if it were a friend, and move forward. Perhaps it's the loss of someone you love. Perhaps it's work, a relationship, a friendship, your confidence, your identity. Or simply you thought you'd have it all by now. You'd have it all worked out by now. And then what I want you to do is I want you to ask yourself a simple question. How am I showing up in response for that loss? Am I fighting? Am I avoiding? It's my little one. Am I telling myself I've failed? Oops, another one of mine. Or am I beginning, however slowly, to move forward, as I'm doing now? I am choosing to move forward for me. Notice your pattern. Give yourself some compassion. Forgive yourself for not getting everything right. And then take the next step. Moving forward doesn't mean leaving what you've lost behind. It doesn't mean leaving what we've lost behind. And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is forgive ourselves for being human and give ourselves permission to live the next chapter. Confidence sits at the centre of everything. And this week, perhaps confidence isn't about being fearless. It's trusting yourself enough to keep moving forward, even when life hasn't gone the way you expected. Until next week, stay safe, stay blessed, send me your comments, let me know what your right action was this week. What did you do to step forward? What did you do to pick yourself up? Take care. Thanks for watching.